As we've been reporting, Russia's war in Ukraine is weighing heavily on the NATO meeting in Washington this week. And so is Russia's overall human rights record. Opposition politician and journalist Vladimir Kara-Murza, who was arrested in April of 2022, had not been heard from this whole past week. And his lawyer was not permitted to see him or speak to him. But that finally changed today. To dig more into that, we're joined now by Evgenia Kara-Murza, who is Vladimir's wife, and we also have reached the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign head, Bill Browder, who's in Aspen, Colorado. Thank you both so much for making time for us, and I'm so glad we've been able to make contact with Vladimir as well.
Thank you very much.
Evgenia, I wonder if I could begin with you, please, and what the lawyer has been able to inform you of Vladimir's conditions and where he is.
Well, last week on July the 4th, when the lawyers tried to visit Vladimir at the prison colony where he's serving his 25-year prison sentence for so-called high treason, for denouncing Vladimir Putin's crimes, the crimes of his regime committed against the Russian population and against Ukraine, they were told that Vladimir had been transferred to a prison hospital. They were not given the reason for the transfer, and they were not permitted to see him. So since last Thursday, they had tried every single day, spending hours and hours by the doors of that prison hospital trying to get access. And I believe that it is the international pressure, all the noise, all the concerns raised, and the alarm that many people around the world raised concerning Vladimir's health and his state of health, yes, that helped us actually get access for the lawyers. So today they were able to see Vladimir, and they say that he's alive, and as well as can be expected under the circumstances. The reason for the transfer is still not completely clear, but we know that at least he's alive, and it is a small respite, and it does not mean that the danger has passed, because any political prisoner in today's Russia risks his or her life behind bars on a daily basis. But it is a bit of a respite, and I'm very grateful to all of those, to each and every one of you around the world who raised concern about Vladimir's health and called on the Russian authorities to allow lawyers access.
Sir Bill, I wonder if I could turn to you and ask you about what this past week and really these past 2 years have been like for Vladimir.
Well, what you need to understand is that he's one of the most hated opposition politicians in Russia by Vladimir Putin and his regime. Vladimir was responsible for the Magnitsky Act, which imposes sanctions on Putin and his cronies. Canada has the Magnitsky Act. In retaliation for Vladimir's role in that legislation, they tried to kill him twice. First in 2015 and then in 2017 using poison, probably Novichok. We still don't know what the kind of poison it was. Vladimir nearly died in both situations. He was in critical condition, in a coma, multiple organ failure. He was able to recover from both assassination attempts, and then he was arrested, put in jail for 25 years, and he has the after effects of all these terrible poisons. And so he's suffering from something called polyneuropathy, which means he's losing sensation in his feet and his hands. And every doctor who's looked at him says that he's not going to survive 2 years, let alone 25 years. And so when he was removed to hospital, we all feared the worst. And this is almost, I think, premeditated sadism for them to keep him incommunicado, as we all were thinking that maybe this was the end. And thank God it isn't the end, but what we can say is that Vladimir is gravely at risk of dying. We've seen other political prisoners like Alexei Navalny dying, as well as Sergei Magnitsky, my lawyer, who died in prison. And so it's absolutely vital and essential that the international community use all tools to try to free Vladimir from prison.
I'm so glad you said that there was a fear that maybe he was gone, because I didn't want to say it. And Evgenia, certainly this must have gone through your mind. You're at a great distance, you can't see him. I just wonder, what is the communication like with him? How are you able to maintain contact?
Well, I've been having this particular fear for many years now. I've been living with this particular fear for many years now, since 2015 at least, since the first poisoning, when he ended up in a coma, just like Bill said, with a multiple organ failure. And it took him over a year to recuperate. And he was, of course, very lucky to survive in the first place. As for communication, under the regime under which Vladimir is serving his sentence, he's not allowed any phone calls, he's not allowed any visits, except by his lawyer. And those visits, as you could witness yourself, can be disrupted at any time. The lawyer can be just denied access at any time without any particular reason. And my communication with him is basically through the prison mail system. All the correspondence that goes through the prison mail system, of course, gets through censorship. So we cannot discuss any sensitive topics, but we still can communicate. And of course, that communication can be disrupted as well by the authorities when they choose to do so at any given moment. Recently, Vladimir yet again requested a phone call with his 91-year-old grandma who lives in Moscow, and she's not feeling well. And of course, she's very, very worried about him. And he wanted to encourage her to he was denied. And he was also denied to call his daughter, who just graduated from high school. He wanted to congratulate her on doing a great job, and was again denied because the prison authorities decided these were not good grounds for a telephone call. They said that a death would be a good a good reason to allow him a phone call. But his daughter's graduation, our 20th year anniversary, the birthday of his 91-year-old grandmother, these are not good reasons for a phone call from a prison colony.
Sir, I wonder if I could bring you back into this conversation. Kara-Murza is a globally recognized figure, one for a representative of democracy and representation. He is an award-winning writer. He won the Pulitzer Prize for commentary. I mean, this is someone who's contributed greatly to the global good, one could argue. But the cruelty with which to have Evgenia say that their daughter, by the way, congratulations on your daughter's graduation, but she can't speak to her dad because it's not an appropriate enough reason. Russia is a civilized, cultured society, and this is a deep level of cruelty. Why isn't more being done to address this? Why is the world staying silent, or at least not taking action? Because all we get is talk, but not real action on this.
Well, you're absolutely right. Vladimir is one of the most important people in the world when it comes to Russia. If for any reason Putin loses power, and we want to have a decent Russia, one that engages with the West, the one that doesn't invade their neighbors and kill their citizens, Vladimir would be a leader of that country. And we've done a lot to help Ukraine fight off Russia, but we need to help the people inside of Russia, like Vladimir, the decent people who may be able to bring Russia out of this horrible abyss. And Vladimir is one of those people. And they are torturing him, both physically and psychologically, as we've seen. And it's absolutely essential that we do whatever we can to get him out of prison. That's probably going to end up being, he's got to be included in some type of prisoner swap, as famous Russian dissidents, Soviet dissidents like Nathan Sharansky, Vladimir Bukovsky. The West needs to work on getting him out that way, because that's the only way that we're going to effectively save his life, and the only way that we're going to have a decent person to potentially pick up the pieces when this Putin regime falls.
Evgenia, I want to give the last word to you. If by some miracle Vladimir could hear this, or if someone in a position of authority who could perhaps bring about some change, bring about something good, what are your words to them?
To my husband, that I love him and admire him and respect him deeply, and that I will stand by him whatever it takes, for as long as it takes. And to the world, to the free democratic world, the Kremlin sends very clear signals to the world. Alexei Navalny was assassinated during the Munich Security Forum, while the Munich Security Forum was taking place. Just 2 days ago, Ukraine cities were bombed yet again. This is how Vladimir Putin marked the beginning of the NATO summit. Many Ukrainian cities were bombed, and a children's hospital in Kiev was destroyed, where cancer patients were sitting in the streets under the rubble, and volunteers were getting dead children from under the rubble. These are very clear signals. These are not coincidences. These are very clear signals that the Kremlin is sending to the world. So I think that the world has to send very clear signals to the Kremlin. And standing with those Russians who fight the regime, who oppose the regime, who speak out against its crimes, who denounce the regime's crimes, is one of the things that the free world can do. Fighting for the lives of those Russians who, like my husband, have been fighting against this regime is one of the things that the world can do. Because if we want to see Russia democracy one day, it is these people who are going to be making sure that Russia becomes a civilized country that lives in peace, at peace with its neighbors, and that respects the rights of its own citizens. So I call on the world to fight for the release of political prisoners in Russia. I call on the world to save the lives of those Russians who send a clear message that they denounce the regime's crimes and the regime's policies. And well, these are my words. And I think that the time for action, well, it should have been done 2 years ago, but many things can be done today. And I call on the world to finally make some tough but very important and much needed decisions.
And on that point, just before I let you both go, should let the audience know that Vladimir Kara-Murza is an honorary Canadian citizen. Our Chase team has reached out to the Canadian government, specifically Global Affairs, to find out what, if anything, they are doing on behalf of Vladimir or on this file. We have not received an official statement yet, but Evgenia, I promise you, if we get it, we will forward it to you. Evgenia Kara-Murza and Bill Browder, thank you both so much for your time, and I'm so very happy that we've heard from Vladimir today.
Thank you.